Without a doubt, Ghana has entered a new regime with the inauguration of the newly elected president, John Dramani. Dramani is set to lead Ghana on a path different from that of the former president, especially regarding Ghana's relationship with its neighbor, Burkina Faso. Recently, both countries signed deals and memorandums of understanding in different areas. This is a sharp break from how the relations between both countries were under the former president of Ghana, Akufo Addo. Meanwhile, a giant statue of the former president which he unveiled days before leaving office has been completely destroyed. In this video, we will analyze why and how the statue was destroyed, as well as Ghana's budding relationship with Burkina Faso. In November 2024, Ghanaians woke up to a surprising shock. The country's former president, Akufo Addo, unveiled a giant statue of himself during a tour of the country's western region. According to the region's minister, Kwabena Okyere Darko-Mensah, the monument is intended to honor the development initiatives the president has overseen whilst in office. The president himself has boasted that he has fulfilled 80% of his promises to Ghanaians. Thus, the monument, prominently placed in front of Sekondi's Kwanta Regional Hospital, was a form of self-glorification. But the citizens of Ghana did not agree with the former president. For them, Akufo's work throughout his 8 years as president does not merit the statue, especially given the fact that many key projects were left incomplete and the economy is struggling. As a result, there had been growing calls for the statue to be removed. However, a few days ago, it was observed that the statue has been destroyed. Local media shared images showing the statue in a ruined state with its severed head lying on the ground. But it's currently not clear who had targeted the sculpture or what the motive was, and the police have not commented. The destruction of the statue has elicited mixed reactions, with some appreciating it while others condemning it. Obviously, whoever did it is certainly not a big fan of Akufo Addo, and with good reasons. The man is not just a Western puppet, but during his term, Ghanaians experienced the worst economic crisis in a generation. Thankfully, there is now a new president who was inaugurated a few days ago. Dramani has said in a few of his speeches that he plans to do things differently from his predecessor. Perhaps that is why one of his first actions in office was to launch an investigation into Akufo Addo's pet project, a $400 million national cathedral. In 2016, after he had just won the election, the ex-president pledged to build the cathedral in honor and glory to God, who he said granted him victory during the elections. At the time, the ex-president said that the project would be privately funded, but a recent report has revealed that about $58 million of taxpayers' money has been pumped into the project. But that's not even the worst part. According to Dramani's administration, nothing has been built to justify this huge amount. The project is currently a massive hole surrounded by wild plants. The hold has collected so much water that it has now been described as the world's most expensive swimming pool. So the question is, where did the $58 million go? While we await the reports of the investigation, it will not be far-fetched to say that the money was diverted into the ex-president's private account. After all, it's a common phenomenon in Africa's corrupt politicians. Before we proceed, here is a reminder to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. Now, another initiative that the new administration in Ghana has embarked on is the development of diplomatic relations between Ghana and Burkina Faso. You see, this relationship was damaged under the tenure of the ex-president of Ghana. A few months after the coup occurred in Burkina Faso, Akufo Addo was the first and only African president to make a damning comment about President Traore. The former president made this remark during an international summit between the United States and Africa, a situation someone described as the Ghanaian president reporting Burkina Faso to the US as if the US is the father and Burkina Faso is its child. According to President Akufo Addo, Ibrahim Traore and his military leaders supposedly hired Russian mercenaries from the shadowy Wagner group to help fight the insurgency problem in the country. He added that he believed that they used a mine in the southern part of the country as a form of payment. Where the president got his information was never revealed, but obviously, his statement caused a kind of diplomatic rift between the two countries, which had previously had a steady diplomatic relationship. At first, President Traore refrained from making an immediate response, although the Burkina Faso government condemned the Ghanaian president for not having the decency to discuss such a delicate situation with its neighbor first, rather than going public with such a scathing accusation. Instead of reporting to the US, a member of NATO who is seeking to expand its military footprint on the African continent and does not care about the continent, why didn't President Akufo sit down with Captain Traore to air his grievances? This is one instance that just proves that the Ghanaian president is a weak leader under the influence of Western powers. Well, regardless, the damage to the relationship between Burkina Faso and Ghana had been done. In response to the allegations, the military government of Burkina Faso denied the allegations, recalled its ambassador in Ghana, and summoned the Ghanaian ambassador to clarify the statement made by the president, but they were also open about their intended cooperation with the Russian government on security issues. In an interview with Alain Foka, President Traore took the opportunity to confront the Ghanaian president directly, staunchly denying any collaboration with the Wagner Group in combating insurgency. He labeled Akufo Addo's accusation as false and lacking evidence, insisting, "Unfortunately, we have seen heads of state being fooled by this lie and spreading the lie that we handed over the southern mines to Russia. It's a lie." President Traore elaborated on the matter, stating, "If the Russians want mines, we have the mining code. They come, they integrate, they get the license. They pay the taxes and everything they have to do, just like everyone else, so we don't give them anything." He also took the occasion to reaffirm his dedication to Burkina Faso's sovereignty, declaring that if the agreement was to serve one master instead of another, we would rather die than do that, as they say, home or death. President Traore's words carry weight. Such honesty and conviction resonate with many, making him a relatable figure. Knowing that he had made a blunder, President Akufo sent its national security minister, Albert Kandapa, to undo the damage. The security minister held a meeting with Captain Traore where he attempted to clarify what his president said at the US-Africa summit, to which Burkina Faso was not invited. This meeting was the first step Ghana took to smoothen the tension between both countries. Now, even though the president of Ghana later apologized to President Traore regarding the false accusations, there is no doubt that Traore has recognized President Akufo Addo for who he truly is. Just like some African leaders, the president of Ghana is a puppet of the West, particularly the US. If you recall, President Akufo once said that there would be no US military base in Ghana. However, some days after he made that statement, it was reported that the president had a backdoor meeting with some US military officials to set up a base in Ghana. It is obvious that someone like him cannot flow with President Traore, who is anti-West. However, President Dramani is completely different from his predecessor. During one of his interviews before the election, President Dramani stated without mincing words that the former government of Ghana created tensions with Burkina Faso. He said, "We know what is happening in Burkina Faso. Indeed, we should be working closer with our comrades in Burkina Faso. Unfortunately, this government has created some tensions between us and Burkina Faso because our president went and opened his mouth too wide." Wow, that is some serious shade at the former president. But President Dramani didn't stop there. He said, "You saw the video. He went and was reporting on Burkina Faso. We all are here. We are suffering. America calls you and you are excited, and the next thing, you start reporting Burkina Faso to the US." With this speech, we can tell that Dramani is not a fan of the US and any leader like Akufo Addo who acts like a puppet of the US. President Dramani further added that President Akufo's actions created tensions, and even though Akufo later apologized, the relationship between Ghana and Burkina Faso is still not as it used to be. He said that with this new change in government, it is necessary that Ghana goes to Burkina Faso and reaffirms diplomatic relations. This is amazing. This is the unity we want to see amongst African countries. In another interview, President Dramani reiterated the same issue, which means that building diplomatic relations with Burkina Faso is on his list of priorities. He said, "I think we must improve our relationship with Burkina Faso, and at the same time we must also strengthen our surveillance and security, so that when it comes to our borders, we will be able to deal with it. And that is also the reason we must solve the crisis in Burkina Faso quickly." It's no surprise then that President Traore was present during his inauguration. Traore's presence was one of the most iconic events that happened during Dramani's inauguration. As one of West Africa's youngest leaders, Traore has gained recognition for his efforts to stabilize Burkina Faso amidst ongoing challenges, including counterterrorism initiatives and strengthening regional alliances. By attending the inauguration, President Traore highlighted the growing camaraderie between Burkina Faso and Ghana, as well as the shared vision of a prosperous and secure West Africa. His participation also reflected the importance of fostering cooperation among nations in the economic community of West African states amid regional challenges. Now, the inauguration ceremony was not only a celebration of Ghana's democratic process, but also a platform for promoting dialogue and collaboration among African leaders. The presence of Captain Ibrahim Traore, alongside other heads of state, symbolized a commitment to mutual support and shared goals. In a statement following the ceremony, President Traore expressed his optimism for Ghana's future under Mahama's leadership and reiterated Burkina Faso's dedication to fostering stronger ties with its neighbors. Today, we reaffirm our commitment to unity, peace, and progress for all West Africans, he stated. It is this commitment between both countries that has made them sign several bilateral agreements. During a bilateral meeting, Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama recently inaugurated, and Burkinabe President Ibrahim Traore agreed to enhance bilateral cooperation and pursue economic development strategies. We are at the beginning of a new relationship of cooperation between our countries, Ghana's president on Burkina Faso-Ghana cooperation. Mahama stressed that Burkinabe and Ghanaians are the same people divided by colonization. He also expressed solidarity with the Burkinabe president regarding terrorist attacks and pledged to collaborate for peace in Burkina Faso, emphasizing that without peace, there can be no development. The presidents also signed various agreements within bilateral cooperation, particularly a cooperation agreement on a railway and a memoranda of understanding in security, sports, and education. The budding relationship between Ghana and Burkina Faso is what we expect to see all over Africa. As Traore stated in one of his speeches, if Africa is to come together, we need to eliminate 3 words. That is, 3 main vices from our actions and our lives. I refer to ineptitude, treachery, and cowardice. Now, if you think deeply on Traore's statement, you would observe that these 3 characteristics, treachery, cowardice, and incompetence, is what has indeed impeded the growth of Africa's unity and progress and kept the continent still under the influence of the West decades after independence. Let's analyze each of these traits deeply, beginning with cowardice. If you observe the leadership of African countries from the west to the east and south to the north, you would observe this trait of cowardice among the leaders. We say cowardice in the sense that most of the leaders from the president down to the least political leader lack the courage to stand against oppressive government and the influence of the West. In addition, cowardice also means that these African leaders are afraid of losing the privilege that comes with their position and prefer to have security and wealth at the expense of the sovereignty of their nations. Knowing this, the West have capitalized on this trait to make generations of African leaders submit to their demands and preserve their interest in the continent. African leaders may come out to blast the West during summits, but behind the scenes, the truth is, the majority of them are cowards. They do not have the backbone to truly stand for African unity and progress. Those that had the courage, like Gaddafi and Sankara, were eliminated. The next trait prevalent among African leaders is treachery or betrayal. In fact, this is a deeply rooted issue that didn't just start after Africa got independence, but can even been traced back to the transatlantic slave trade era. If you recall, some of the Africans sold to slavery were sold by African traditional leaders for guns, wine, and mirrors. This act of betraying one another for one's own benefit has permeated deeply into the system and is impeding African unity. Think about it. How were those courageous African leaders who truly wanted to fight against imperialism killed? Simply through their fellow Africans. Who invited NATO to militarily intervene in Libya, which gave them the opportunity to kill Gaddafi? African leaders and political figures in Libya. Who killed Thomas Sankara? Blaise Compaoré, good friend of Sankara and an African leader. Right from time, the West has capitalized on this trait and used it to maintain influence over the continent. They come in, promising one weak and greedy African leader financial and security benefits, and that leader turns its back against African unity. It is very important that for Africa to break free, it needs to have leaders that would put the needs of the general collective above personal needs. Finally, the trait of incompetence. Without mincing words, the majority of African leaders are incompetent, are not fit for the job, and do not deserve to be called leaders. Most of them got into power just because they want the title and see it as a way to get wealth. They do not have the necessary experience and qualification necessary to rule a country, and we are not just talking about having a formal education. We are talking about knowing the right decision to take at every time, being compassionate, having intelligence to negotiate with other leaders, and many more leadership qualities. It is this incompetence that has made African leaders to sell the continent's resources for peanuts to the West and allowed the West to exploit the continent for decades. It is this incompetence that has made African leaders to continuously sign agreements that are only beneficial to the other party. It is also this incompetence that has made Africa to remain dependent on foreign aid and financial assistance from the West, leading to the narrative that the African continent needs to be helped always. This incompetence has put the African continent in huge debt, made the youth flee to the West in search of greener pastures, and impeded the overall progress of the entire continent. Honestly, we do not know which of the three traits is worse, but one thing is sure, all three combined have been weaponized into a tool by the West to keep the continent under their thumb. However, this is why President Traore said that if Africa is going to be united, then there is a need to do away with these three traits. President Traore is determined to be different and is raising his voice for the need for a new set of leaders in Africa who will prioritize the needs of their people above their personal needs. He is calling for leaders that are patriotic and are ready to uphold the sovereignty of their country no matter what. This is why Traore said that he is ready to die for this cause. What a leader. By making this statement publicly, President Traore is weakening one of the most potent instruments used by the West to keep the continent under its thumb. But that's not all. Traore is also charging those African leaders who are weak and incompetent, reminding them of their duty and responsibility to African unity. The fact is that the West fears African unity because it is the path that would lead to the continent's progress and freedom from their influence. African leaders need to wake up and do away with these three traits so that the continent can be on its way to progress. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, and share this video.